Hello and welcome to today's session. We'll be getting started momentarily. We're just waiting for the viewers to join. It looks like the viewers have joined. We're just going to confirm that the audio appears to be working. Looks like the audio is working. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Okay, great. So thank you so much for taking the time to join today's session. So today we're going to be talking about, I'm going to first start out by setting the framework of today's call or today's YouTube video. So we're going to be talking about recent proposals in Congress that would effectively ban the Backdoor Roth IRA, as well as the ability to make Mega Backdoor Roth solo 401k contributions starting next year. So there's a lot of content in what's being proposed. We're going to be focusing today just on this specific issue. I note that another hot button issue for self-directed retirement accounts is the ability to invest in all accredited investments. We're going to be covering the accredited investment portion of the proposal next week on our community. So there's a link in the comments here where you can join the community if you're not already a member. But we'll be having a deep dive session to continue to talk about this topic as well as the proposal as it relates to the ability to invest a self-directed retirement account in accredited investments. So for today, though, let's go ahead and get started with talking about, we're going to go through, number one, the content exactly of what's being proposed, procedurally where it's at, and what you could do if you wish to oppose what's being proposed. So in terms of procedurally where it's at, this is taking place in the context of the infrastructure bill, which is a legislative priority for the Biden administration. And the Senate has passed their version of the infrastructure bill, which doesn't have this content or doesn't have this provision. The House is in the process of voting on their version. And so as part of the House's process, the Ways and Means Committee has made certain proposed amendments to the House version of the infrastructure bill. So procedurally, what will happen is once the House agrees on their version of the infrastructure bill, then the Senate and the House will negotiate to create a common bill that will then be voted on by the Senate and the House. And then if it's approved, it'll go to President Biden to be signed. So there still is a ways to go legislatively, but it has cleared a significant legislative hurdle by coming out of committee and now being part of the House version of the bill. So given that the infrastructure bill, is a top priority of the Biden administration, and given the dramatic effect that the proposal would have, it's definitely worthwhile to pay attention to this. There's often legislative proposals that impact the retirement industry, but they never really progress beyond just the proposal stage. Whereas this has, again, cleared a significant procedural step where it needs to be taken seriously. So the question then is, what is exactly being proposed? And so it's important, I think, to understand the context, perhaps politically speaking, as far as what gave rise to this proposal. And so it goes back to recent news reports of Peter Thiel's Roth IRA that were publicized first by ProPublica. But in short, if you haven't read those reports, just to give a quick summary, Peter Thiel apparently has been able to accumulate over $5 billion in his Roth IRA. So if he waits until he's 59 and a half, he's going to be able to take those funds out without paying any taxes. And my understanding is that he started out with just one initial contribution of $6,000, which he then invested in PayPal, sold that, and then invested it in other investments that, you know, that increased in value in a similar fashion. I believe Uber perhaps is what he invested some of his Roth IRA money in. So there's been a negative reaction, at least among some of the legislators, to hearing this, that I think it's fair to say that it's viewed as something that contradicts really the purpose of a Roth IRA, which is for maybe middle class individuals to save for retirement, and not a tool that would allow you know, an ultra wealthy person to avoid paying taxes on $5 billion. So there's been a number of proposals in response to this, right? One is, and this page here gives a quick high-level summary of a number of the proposals, right? So one is the limiting IRA accounts to $10 million, forced and faster distributions, no more backdoor IRA. So that's the high-level context of the proposal, right? And what sparked it. Now, as far as digging a little deeper into exactly what's being proposed, this slide here gives a nice summary. And if we focus on the last paragraph, furthermore, this section prohibits all employee after-tax contributions in qualified plans and prohibits after-tax IRA contributions from being converted to Roth, regardless of income level, after December 31st of 2021. So translation, that means that regardless of income level, no one's going to be able to do a backdoor Roth IRA or backdoor Roth solo 401k starting next year. So to put it in context, right now, right, you have the ability, you know, subject to the rules, income limits, etc., to make, you've got to also consider certain technical requirements like the pro rata rules for making backdoor Roth IRA contributions. So that's going to be eliminated under the proposal. Secondly, if you're self-employed, you don't have any full-time employees working for you, you can set up a solo 401k plan that would allow you to make mega backdoor Roth contributions. And the way that you do that is by making after-tax contributions to a qualified 401k plan and then converting it over to a Roth sub-account. So both of those tools, those retirement savings tools, would be eliminated under the proposal starting next year. So as you can see, that's a pretty dramatic change from where things stand right now. So we will go through, just to give more background here, a few slides to give just a high level of exactly how you do that right now. If we've got right here what steps you can take if you're interested and if you're inclined to do so, to, you know, let Congress know that you oppose this proposal. So, you know, even if you accept the premise that maybe the Peter Thiel Roth IRA scenario is not in line with the purpose of Roth IRA contributions, the proposal here is definitely beyond the scope of what's needed perhaps to address that real issue, even if you accept the premise that that's an issue. So I think it's perhaps an issue where Congress, it's just an information gap, right? Where they don't understand how the tool is being used. And take, for example, self-employed individuals, right? Based on in our experience as a solo 401k provider, you know, many self-employed individuals don't save in a systematic fashion. In other words, in a linear fashion where they're saving the same amount every year, right? A self-employed individual might have years where they don't save because they're starting a business, but then they have years where they want to make large contributions. So the Mega Backdoor Roth Solo 401k is certainly a powerful tool to be able to make large contributions and essentially catch up for years where they didn't make contributions. So, and these tools are not being used necessarily by billionaires. We're talking about small business owners. So if that's something that, again, you're inclined to communicate, we have here a way that you can get in touch with your senator and representative. You can call them at 202-225-3121. All you have to do is give them your zip code and they'll put you in touch with your senator and or representative office. You can call back, like after you speak to one senator, call back and ask to be connected to the other and the representative, etc. And we've got just a script here just to make it easy for you, points that you might want to make just to communicate to the legislative assistant who you're speaking to let them know that this, again, is an important tool for you to be able to make contributions and save for retirement. You're not a billionaire. There is a retirement crisis in this country in terms of this retirement savings crisis. So that you oppose this proposal. Now, as far as what I mentioned, as far as the steps to make the contributions, in terms of the Backdoor Roth IRA strategy, you would first need to make after-tax contributions to an IRA account, and then you convert it over to the Roth IRA, considering those pro rata rules. A Form 1099-R is issued to report the conversion, and a Form 8606 is also issued for the IRA. So that's a real simple understanding of how it works. As far as the Backdoor Roth Solo 401k, you would need to make contributions into a separate after-tax sub-account for your Solo 401k. Assuming you're self-employed, you have a Solo 401k plan that allows you to make the after-tax contributions, and then you convert it over either to a Roth IRA or a Roth Solo 401k, and likewise that conversion over to the Roth IRA or Roth Solo 401k is going to be reported on a 1099-R. So again, as I mentioned, we're going to be continuing this conversation on our community site. There's a URL here where you can access that community site. We're going to be hosting another session this coming week. You can find the schedule for that as well as the access to that webinar on the community, where we're going to continue to discuss this topic as well as the accreditor investment proposal. We do have time if people who are here have questions, so please don't hesitate to chat them over through the YouTube tool, and we can go through those questions. In the meantime, I'll leave up the telephone number where you can get in touch with your representative and let them know that you oppose the legislation, that it's an important retirement savings tool for you. Yeah, so again, I don't see that we have any questions. I appreciate everyone taking the time to join. We'll be continuing to have this conversation, as I mentioned, on our community site. And if you're so inclined, it would be great to let your representative know that you oppose the legislation that, again, it's an important retirement savings tool. You may be just, just a everyday taxpayer, everyday small business owner, and this is a good tool for you to save. Certainly this change wouldn't have even have stopped the Peter Thiel situation. So it's sort of a, a proposal that is not really, that is not solving the purported problem, even if you agree that it's a problem, as well as, not raising any money, because we're talking about after tax money. So in the context of the infrastructure bill, if part of the goal here is to raise money to pay for infrastructure, we're talking about after tax contributions. So this is money that has already been, this is income that's already been, the tax has already been paid for. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much again for taking the time, and we appreciate your participation.